Yep, it's been a seriously crap situation and our hospitality industry worldwide has been one of the hardest hit. So this episode is looking to the future of our restaurants and some opportunities. An episode for not only our hardworking hospo industry, but also for anyone who loves to eat out in restaurants, to help them understand just what it takes to stay in the restaurant game these days. And because maybe, just maybe, the best is yet to come. Now, there's no denying that across 2020 into 21, the restaurant industry has been shaken to its very core. And it all seemed to spiral right out of control so fast, huh? At the end of April 2020, in a heart-wrenching article in the New York Times, noted chef Gabrielle Hamilton wrote about her decision to close her New York restaurant Prune after 20 years in the business. In that article, Gabrielle stated that Prune was just barely banking what it needs to each week to cover expenses, and that she'd been joking for years that she's in the non-profit sector. That's no joke. That article was published as every chef and restaurateur, sommelier, waiter, front of house manager, pretty much everyone in the hospitality industry worldwide was facing the enormity of the implications of COVID-19 and thinking about what the future might bring. It became a time to reevaluate. Now, I have 5 of the trends for building a sustainable restaurant of the future coming up, curated especially for you from all of the great info that comes across my editor's desk. But first, let's take a little look at where we were as we approach the end of 2020 into early 21. The National Restaurant Association USA estimated that at the end of 2020 there was $240 billion less in revenue for the hospo industry, with 2.5 million jobs lost. Spain had one of Europe's strictest national lockdowns in the first wave of the pandemic, forcing the Spanish people to change the very core of their culture, which revolves around eating out. As a result, by the end of 2020, the restaurant sector had lost 50% of its revenue, amounting to 60 billion euros. That's $73.3 billion. In 2020 alone, between 85,000 and 100,000 establishments were forced to close. And more than half of the restaurant sector workers lost their jobs. France reported a loss of revenue for their restaurant industry of €30 billion for 2020. And in the UK, due to measures of social distancing and general caution in public places, the year-over-year change of seated diners in restaurants compared to 2019 was down 28% by the middle of 2021. Closer to home, in March 2020, Stats New Zealand was already reporting that spending on food and beverage services, which included cafes, restaurants, takeaway food services and bars, plummeted by 27% or $238 million. That's pretty harsh for a country of just 5 million players. And that was just the beginning. Now, I haven't got time here to pick apart the stats for you for every country, but as you know, this year, fresh waves of the epidemic have happened almost everywhere, massively affecting customer flow and further disrupting desperate recovery attempts by restaurant operators. The kicker is, or is it, that as if a massive hit to revenue streams hasn't been enough of a challenge, the pandemic has accelerated a question that's been on a slow boil for years. And that's the question of whether pursuing a career in hospitality is a good decision at all. For many, the lockdowns and forced isolation at home has resulted in the realisation that their work needs to be more than just a paycheck. It's about being respected, protected and valued. Now, I could spend an entire evening sitting here debating the value of a career in hospo with you, and I have to say it would be a biased one because I absolutely love the hospo world. But I don't mind admitting to you that I left it many years ago because I couldn't earn a sustainable living. That word value, it's one of the most crucial words in this whole conversation. The value of the employee, the value of the skill set, the value put on pursuing a career in hospo in the first place, which does need to start at an educational level and work its way up. The value proposition that a restaurant can offer to its customer. And the perceived value that the customer has for not only the restaurant, but for food and beverage in general. Remember those signs? Thank you, essential workers. Lockdowns threw the spotlight on how incredibly important those on the front lines were in providing our essentials while we were in our bubbles. I think it's fair to say that the restaurant customer, who has now been subject to home cooking and takeaways for a good part of 2020 and 21, is starting to have a newfound respect for just how essential the hospitality industry has now become. So perhaps now is the time to help them understand the true cost of running a restaurant. Costs a lot to switch the lights on. Costs a lot to purchase premium ingredients, pay the team in the kitchen to work a full shift to prepare that meal. Rent, taxes, insurance, cleaning. Perhaps now the customer might consider that paying more for a truly great meal and experience might be okay. And of course, we all know that's a bigger topic than I can tackle here in 10 minutes, but I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. How do we insert the value back into all of those very complicated layers? No matter how much you value the hospo industry, all of that means nothing to a restaurant if they're unable to stay in the game. There seems to be two major trains of thought circulating at the moment. One, those that say the small independent restaurant will just shrivel up and the chain restaurants will be the only ones that can retain staff and provide full restaurant service. And two, those that say leadership will come from small establishments, the independents, those who can be adaptable and lean and have the courage to fight for something better. Either way, the one thing that the hospitality industry has shown that it has in spades is resilience, flexibility and perseverance. Global statistics for the restaurant industry point to social distancing measures and general caution towards being in public places, causing many consumers to dine out less. With the year-over-year reduction of seated diners in restaurants worldwide reaching 5% by October 2021. But there are opportunities lurking. Trends that probably wouldn't have happened for years are appearing at an accelerated rate. Technology can be a powerful tool, especially when it's used with a customer-first mindset. All over the world, we've seen hospo venues embrace the power of technology and ramp up their digital capabilities, mobile ordering, click and collect and QR codes, using the power of social media to drive customers to websites to order, implementation of digital payments. Now, none of this work will be wasted. Restaurants have had to work harder than ever to connect and stay in contact with their customer. Continuing this digital presence and creating a digital footprint for the future will be imperative to a great strategic plan. Driving loyalty through subscriptions and offering quality, consistent products at great value can bring revenue to restaurants in advance, which is incredibly important in today's world. And being the editor of Cuisine magazine, I can tell you a thing or two about the fierce loyalty of a good subscriber. It's how you use this model to differentiate from the rest and how you look after that subscriber that will have a bearing on success. We're seeing simplifying of the ordering and payment process, and in many cases, a simplifying of the menu, which in turn enables simplifying of the labour pool. To stay in the game, you might need to think more about simplification and resist that urge to add stuff back, get rid of the stuff. But remember, simple can also be amazing. It's only the best chefs that understand how to do simple really well. Bigger is not always better. The massive menu list with dozens of unique and in most cases unnecessary ingredients, many of which can end up in the bin, is now becoming old school. Simple doesn't have to be boring. Simple can still be about excellent technique and exciting ideas if it's done well and you can elevate the customer experience. Simplicity can equal profitability. Creative operators are standing out way above the crowd, and the hospitality industry is full of creative individuals. They perform well under pressure and, well, they almost thrive on it, don't they? It's that creativity that has overcome so many challenges and curveballs through this mess, and it's what will continue to drive the hospo industry forward. Being unique is more important than ever. To survive, the industry has become a network of innovation, as you can see here. Everything from drive-through, creative at-home kits, virtual events, carry-out cocktails, travel to other countries and cultures through the beauty of food and drink. The question is, how will operators continue to innovate? A key factor here is the ability to shout out about how you do things differently. We are all looking for a story that is real. Now, in 2021, the global online food delivery market is expected to reach $151.5 billion in revenue, with a 10% increase from 2020. And according to global financial services Morgan Stanley, in the US alone, food delivery will be a $470 billion market by 2025. Now, this is partly because we've had a bit of a shift in behaviour during the pandemic, and partly because we just love a convenient option. Now, yes, this is a no-brainer for ghost kitchens and fast food chains, but don't be too quick to throw the concept of deliveries out the door if you're an independent restaurant. Forward thinkers are offering some outstanding restaurants the opportunity to think outside the box, to move their restaurant offering way beyond their locations. For example, leading Melbourne chef Shane Delia turned the lockdown nightmare into a win in 2020 when he launched Providor, a restaurant meal delivery service taking on the tech giants and putting more money back into the pockets of struggling restaurateurs. Shane focused on quality restaurants in Melbourne offering next day delivery when ordering by 4 p.m. the day prior and generating more than $40 million in revenue for the restaurants involved. New Zealand followed with the launch of Mise, short for Mise en Place, all that stuff that chefs do behind the scenes to get our meals ready for us. Recognising that location can be a massive barrier with regards to access to great chefs and restaurants, and equally recognising that restaurants are just as restricted by their geographical location and the number of seats in their restaurant as well. Joe Scott and Arthur Crawford decided to provide a platform for great restaurants to market and sell their offering nationwide. It's again with a place your order the day prior approach. The Auckland pilot is underway with nationwide coming soon, and it's a ripper. Now, although delivery may be here to stay, it really is just a very small layer of an industry that's really people first, providing a space for us to gather with friends and family and connect while sharing amazing food and drink experiences. Now that will always be at the heart of a great restaurant. Remember, it's not the restaurant that decides it's the best. The customer decides that. And value means different things to different people, doesn't it? For some, it might be more affordable or bigger portions. But to many, it's about getting something they can't do at home. It's about getting something they didn't expect or that simply exceeded their expectations. The restaurant customer has become more engaged in cooking and eating at home. Smart operators are listening to what they crave, embracing that info and giving them more of what they truly want, not what they think their customer should eat. Whether you're a huge restaurant or a small independent, as guests return champing at the bit, as we all do, for an excellent restaurant experience, it's time to really connect in person as you welcome your guests back. Welcome them back as a community. That need for human connection is part of our DNA. It's definitely not all doom and gloom, as Ibis World reports that the Australian restaurant industry is forecast to expand slightly over the next 5 years, driven by the current and rising interest in the foodie culture. The industry in Oz is projected to grow at an annualised 0.7% over the next 5 years through 26 to 27 to reach $20.5 billion. Rising discretionary income is anticipated to boost demand for higher margin, premium products and a desire to spend more money on dining out. That's great. However, this good news largely depends on the COVID-19 pandemic not becoming a long-term factor and, of course, the pace of vaccine rollout. Amazing as it may seem, despite all of the setbacks and challenges, restaurants continue to open. And one that's been long awaited is the opening of Encore by Claire Smith at the Crown in Sydney. Described as relaxed fine dining, 26 levels above the beautiful Sydney Harbour, the 68-seater will open on the 18th of November and celebrate Australia's finest produce. As the first and only female chef awarded 3 Michelin stars in the UK for her restaurant core, Claire will oversee Encore, supported by head chef Alan Stewart, who's worked in some absolute beauties, including New York's 11 Madison Park and restaurant Gordon Ramsay in London. Hospo veteran Michael Stoddart has moved from holding the fort at fabulous Bennelong at the Sydney Opera House to take up the role of restaurant manager. And it's looking pretty swish, huh? I can't wait to get a look-see. The opening of small independents is still showing up on the menu, with Georgia Van Prune quietly opening Alta on K Road a few months ago, just before we plummeted into lockdown again in Auckland. Alta offers a small, ever-changing 4-course menu with some really thoughtful dishes coming from this young chef, who in my opinion is one to watch. Again, I can't wait to get in for a first taste. So yep, in 2020 the pandemic shook the restaurant industry to its core, and 2021 has seen the industry enduring even more challenge, and yet there were countless stories of perseverance that proved that the hospo industry has strength and staying power. As for the diner, well, now it's our chance to make sure every restaurant visit counts. Like it or not, we will be voting with our wallets as to the doors that will stay open. And I know that this episode by no means offers concrete solutions. It's just snippets for you of a lot of good stuff that comes across my desk. I'm hopeful for the future of the restaurant industry, I really am, and I like to think that there's still room for everyone out there. But at the higher end, it's going to come down to the operations that do it the best and that do it differently. If you looked around before the pandemic, you've got to admit that there were far too many below average restaurants out there, and they made it difficult for anyone to have a sustainable restaurant business. Customers are now thinking really hard about where they spend their dollars and choosing the operators that they trust. They want a safe environment and something different, a quality experience, whether it be at a restaurant or at home. And with that comes great honesty, integrity, and opportunity. Right, I've put the links below for some fantastic reading material that's helped me compile these trends. They might help you create ideas around what your successful restaurant of the future might look like. So, subscribe to the channel. Tell me what you think or what you'd like to hear about down there. Give this video a like so I can keep producing them for you. And I'll leave you with this little nugget. Apparently, it has hours of realistic sounds to get you into the restaurant zone. So while most of you are already back enjoying your favourite restaurants, a shout out to my Auckland comrades who are still stuck in level 3 and dying to get out to a decent restaurant. You might like to set the table and set the mood with this in the background tonight, and I'll meet you back here soon.